What's up YouTube? I finally got a little bit of sleep, so now I'm here to make my video about how to count cash. Well, not really how to count cash, but basically what are the most expensive items in Archnemesis League. And Archnemesis is kind of an interesting league. You will see with a lot of these items that there is something that is quite valuable that you may not expect. And it's not even an item per se, it's more of a way of linking the items purely because Tainted Orb of Fusings are gone. Now, the reason we want to look up the most expensive items is because it helps us get a good sense of what are the most popular and meta builds in the league. Because a lot of these items are mainly because the builds are very, very popular, or because the item is very, very rare. And if the item is very rare, then you can have a good idea of what currency making method you could utilize to go farm some of these items. So in the next video after this one, for tomorrow, I'm going to be doing an updated shopping cart and going over how you could upgrade your Lightning Strike Berserker character, because I do know a lot of people are at the point where they have the Gale Sight and they have Secrets of Suffering, or they have a 6-link chest and they want to know what are the next upgrades to get. But that's for the next video. And in terms of Archnemesis League, kind of profitable overall. I would highly recommend just focusing on scarab rewards and using the Treant thing. It's very, very cost effective. But let's get straight into the most expensive items and see what they actually are. So number one, PoE Ninja does break it down into different categories. We have unique weapons. Arachali's Fane is the most expensive unique item at 5.9 exalts. This was kind of surprising to me. I did think that Arachali's Fane would not be as popular in terms of it receiving a pretty much half damage nerf because Hydra Spear no longer works with Arachali's Fang. But it seems like a lot of people still want to farm Simulacrum, and the people who farm Simulacrum have a lot of money, and 5.9 exalts is just the price of it. So I do know some people in my stream actually found an Arachali's Fang, and I had no idea that the item was this expensive. Not really sure where it drops. I think it's a global drop that's just super, super rare. But second up we have is Replica Dust Storm, but Replica Dust Storm has such a low sample size. So whenever like PoE Ninja feels like something has low confidence, it puts an exclamation point just to tell you that this item doesn't really exist. It doesn't really know if it's actually worth that much. So the second item on the list is Paradoxica. Now the reason being is Paradoxica is actually being mostly used by General's Cry Berserkers. General's Cry Berserker is a really popular build for boss killing at the start, and it's also a build that will probably have a lot of money because all of the berserkers are selling their boss kills or they're doing boss kill services, so they can afford to buy a Paradoxica for a decent chunk of change. Paradoxica is another item that is pretty expensive to buy. It's like pretty impossible to farm. The best way to get Paradoxica is to just be doing safe houses, but doing June missions right now is kind of hard to be repeatedly chaining them without any sort of watchstone roll. Now, Savior is another item that's pretty high up, and this is at 2.1 exalt. So I took a look on PoE Ninja of what builds are actually using the Savior, and it turns out every single one of the Savior users are Steel champions. They're playing Lancing Steel, and it's kind of surprising that this is the only use case of Savior currently. And the other items you can see are Iron Commander 6-link bow. Now, this bow I think had a build with it with that Palsteron made with ballista totems or something like that, and then these ones are pretty much just some lightning spell, a Cane of Unraveling, and some chaos damage spell staff. So unique armors, we have the Squire is the most expensive item at 46.7 exalted orbs, and every Squire player is actually using Arachali's Fang. There's no 12-link weapon yet, so it seems like Arachali's Fang players are complete ballers, right? The Spider Minion players, they have the most expensive unique item. They also use the most expensive unique armor. So they just must be balling out of control. And the reason why they're balling out of control and are richer than you is because they're farming Simulacrum nonstop. So next up, we have Replica Pharaoh's Fur and Replica Alberon's Warpath. And I do need Replica Alberon's Warpath for the Venom Jar build in the past. But since the build got nerfed unintentionally by GGG, I'm no longer looking to play it, so 14.4x is kind of a lot. Replica Pharaoh's Fur is really good in general just to get endurance charges, and it's 22.2 exalts. So both those items are replica, meaning they're found in blueprints, and they have an extremely low supply. Every single league, they are pretty hard to find. So maybe doing heist is quite profitable in terms of that what's it called, jackpot that you may get. So where are all the people doing heists, right? I thought there were a lot of people doing heists, but it seems like most of the people doing heists were just doing heists to get some currency and chaos at league start in order to afford their build, perhaps, and they're not actually going full out and farming blueprints. And you can also see here that 6-link chests are extremely, extremely expensive. 6-link Brass Dome is 10 exalt. 6-link Cherubim's Maleficence for Peacock builds is 7.9 exalt. Impulsas is 7.8 exalt. Rue's Blunderboard that he's been using is 7.6 exalt. And the reason being is that fusings are nearly 2-to-1 chaos. They're so expensive because there's no way to really get fusings anymore. You pretty much have to pray to Chris Wilson just drops on the ground. You can't do Nemesis currency anymore. And without Tainted Orb of fusings, it's very hard to 6-link items. On average, it does cost around 1,200 fusings, right? So next up, we have unique accessories. And with no surprise here, it is Mage Blood. Mage Blood wins out again by a mile, currently at 150 exalts. You could expect this price to go up probably to like 250 within a day or two, with everyone price fixing it. Without div cards around and it being easily farmable, or not even easily farmable, but be able to target farm it, the price will continue to rise and rise and rise. The only thing stopping Mage Blood from going to the moon is the fact that Mage Blood is kind of not that great in this league with the amount of juice in every map. And Headhunter also got a buff in a sense for a lot of worse builds, in that almost every single build can benefit from Headhunter now, with a more benefit because of the new rare mods they added. So definitely Mage Blood will still be up there, but I think it will be more up there from price fixers. And I do think that this league is really not a bossing league, and you really do not need Mage Blood. You pretty much want to have Headhunter, especially with the league mod being Archnemesis and there being pretty much a bunch of rares in every map if you do decide to take Harbinger or Domination Shrines, or you could even get more rare monsters on the map, right? So Headhunter should be really, really strong, and I do think it'll be the best belt overall. But I do think that since Headhunter is easily farmed with div cards, whether it's in Tower or Burial Chambers, the price will be kept in check, right? Another thing to note is that no Unato's Vow even exists yet. I do think that Unato's Vow will still be pretty expensive. There might be some minion players that will use it because the new Crystallized Omniscience Amulet is still not like usable by builds that aren't LE damage. So if you want a 7th link and you don't use LE damage, then Unato's Vow still has a use case scenario. However, there's none that exists, right? So it'd be interesting to see how much this item is. Strangle Gas, there's only 4 up for like 90x, so it's more than Headhunter. But the thing about Strangle Gas is the fact that Blight maps are kind of bugged right now. I know a lot of people have been having trouble trying to get into a Blight map. So it will be interesting to see what Strangle Gas actually ends up at. Next up, we have Unique Flask, and no surprise here, Bottle Faith is by far the most expensive, and I do think the price will probably continue to climb to probably at 15 exalts or so. The reason being is that Bottle Faith is a very, very unbeatable flask in terms of damage, especially if you're a crit build. And the bad part about Bottle Faith is that the drop rate is pretty low on Cortex. I think last league they nerfed the overall drop rate of Bottle Faith, and that's why the price became so high for it. Now, the only downside of Bottle Faith for this league is the fact that Flagellance and Flash Charge Gain on hit is still around, making it like super, super OP, and you can't use the Flash Charge Gain on hit tech with Unique Flasks. And another thing up here that's pretty surprising, Oro's Resolve. I think there's only like a couple of them up, so I'm not including that. But Soul Ripper, never really used that much, but it's being used in group play a lot. A lot of groups are having all their supports and even their carries use Soul Ripper in order to spam vault skills like Blade Vortex. So that's why its price is so incredibly high. And then you can see here that Starlight Chalice, another Expedition one. So Expedition is kind of gaining some of these flask costs. And then Dying Sun and Taste of Fame, right? The Dying Sun is not really worth that much. So next up, we have Unique Jewels. And most expensive jewel here, no surprise, is the Stat Stacking Jewel from Uber Lab. If we do play Venom Jar, that jewel is very, very extremely strong, and it did go up to like 80x in half a mirror last league. Now, I was saying Unnatural Instinct is actually pretty high. Usually, Unnatural Instinct is not really used that much at the start, and then it slowly starts getting higher. But this league, Unnatural Instinct pretty much shot to the moon, right? Plus 1,025%. And the reason being is that they're mostly being used by Explosive Arrow characters. And I was actually quite surprised at that. I think Palserot actually recommended using it, so that's probably why everyone is using it. I think he puts it in the Scion area to get some more. I don't even know. I have to go check it out. Let's go check it out, right? Because it's always interesting to see what exactly people are using. So this is how you know like what items are actually going to be used, is to just see exactly who is using it. So you can see here explosive arrow 72%. So let's go see some of the elementalists and where they actually put it. So they probably put it in, where do they actually put it? So I can't really tell here where they put it because usually there's a jewel socket somewhere. So let's go see another person's profile. So where do they actually put this jewel socket? Let me copy it over in the POB just because I'm pretty curious and because it's always good to know, right? And they put it unnatural instinct is over here. So the reason they put unnatural instinct over here is purely to get all of these bow damage nodes. So damage with bow, damage with bow. So it ends up being, so unnatural instinct ends up being 11.3% jewel damage increase, which I guess is a lot. It doesn't really give much else though. I'm actually very surprised at this. It is a lot of damage. 11% is on the high end for a jewel, but I actually expected it to give a lot more other cool stuff, right? But basically, that's what Unnatural Instinct is being used for. Mystery solved. Aura bots are slowly driving the demand for Voices 5 passive. So at the start of the league, most Aura bot, there's no real Aura stacker. Aura bot stuff is more expensive. Inspire Learning is also kind of expensive at 2.9 exalts. You can see the price is going higher. Reason being is that more and more people are finishing up their Atlas passive trees and are realizing they need to have a headhunter or a budget headhunter, which is Inspire Learning, in order to farm the juice content. And lastly, you can see something very interesting here is that most of the Legion jewels are pretty useless. In fact, Brutal Restraint is more expensive than Glorious Vanity. And the reason they are so worthless is because Emblematic and the Legion nodes on the tree are just too good. So this is something to know about this game in general and the Atlas passive tree, right? So like even though the Atlas passive tree might seem like it's the hot shit and that it gives you so many rewards and stuff like that, the thing is if everyone is able to do the rewards, none of your rewards are going to be worth anything, right? So if everyone's able to do Legion and get essences for free at the start, then all of the essences will just become worthless, right? Everything will go down to like the price of one chaos or so. So that's why in the end, in terms of finding your money making method, and I will be making a good money making method video tomorrow or the next day after tomorrow, it's about finding something that is more hard to do. Like that's why Simulacrum is good. That's why Delirium is always good, because they're hard to do content. The easy to do content that anyone can do, the profit margin will become zero, and that's literally what happens with Legion, right? It's still decent profit, but it's nowhere near as good as it was before. Before, when you had to roll the watchstones with Emblematic, that was a huge cost of entry, right? So always consider the cost of entry and barrier to entry when you decide on your money making method. Lastly, let's try to draw some conclusions after we figured out what all the most unique items, most expensive items in PoE currently are in Archnemesis. And without Tainted Fuses and Nemesis 3, 6-link body armor unique will maintain its value for a while. And that's just the case, right? Without Tainted Fuses, it is hard to 6-link items. It costs a lot of fuses to 6-link items. It's not something that anyone can just do. I've used 2,000 fuses on a chest before and got nothing, right? Tainted Fuses, much, much easier. Now, Mage Blood will definitely be the most expensive item, as I'm very surprised there's still no div card. So maybe someone who won the boss kill event in SSF Hardcore can design a Mage Blood div card if it's not already being currently made. And we can expect to see a lot more price fixing, especially with how low the supply of Mage Bloods will be without Scourge MF farming. This item will become price fixed to the moon, I'm pretty sure. And Headhunter will probably be extremely desired due to the new Atlas passive tree. And I do think that this is a saving grace for the price of Mage Blood, is that Headhunter pretty much beats out Mage Blood in almost every scenario with the current Atlas, with how there is a bunch of rares everywhere. There's a bunch of Harbingers. Every single map you can see Harbingers. You can have Domination. You can have a Strong Box. So Headhunter is going to be really, really good. And not to mention you can put Beyond on every single map. And lastly, all of the new bossy uniques are hot garbage because of how easy the bosses are. I'm not sure you noticed, but in the previous slides of the most expensive items, I'm pretty sure no one saw a single bossing unique. I think the only bossing unique we saw, did we even see one? I don't even think we saw one. But I do think that the amulet was kind of up here, but it was not even really that close. But basically, it's kind of sad that there's no good bossa unique that's even expensive. Like, I guess the ones that are the most expensive are definitely the Ascendancy class jewels. And there are some pretty expensive ones, but it is still a far cry from the multi-mirror that people thought that Profane Bloom would be. But like I said, this is the same concept as money making methods, is that you want to find something that's hard to do. And when the new bosses are that easy and everyone can spam and do it, then nothing's going to be worth anything, right? So keep that in mind when trying to find your money making method. And thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more mirrors, exalts, and mage bloods of me. And maybe Grimmer will make a video for us that we can find this new awesome money making method that doesn't exist. But until then, see you next time. And yeah, bye.